I dropped the wood into the icy, dark waters and then waded out into the icy current. I was up to my chest in the water, holding onto the net, when I first saw the dragon boat. All that I saw was the red-painted dragon prow of the ship heading silently for the bank. It came from nowhere, as though some wizard had summoned it. Even had I wanted to, I could not have evaded capture. I was too far into the river. Aieli, who was closest to the bank, tried to run and to shout a warning, but an axe flew through the air and split his skull in two. I had seen that happen before, but only to the pigs and sheep when we slaughtered them. The raiders leapt from the boat, and while 2 of them secured it to a tree, 4 warriors began to grab and bind the other 6 boys. I was the furthest out, and I began to wade in. I could not swim. As I struggled against the water, I reflected that my offering had not been enough, and the village was being punished because they worshipped the White Christ and not Ikaunus. A toothless old man waited for me. He smelled of sweat and pig grease. He turned me around and bound my hands behind me. He was accomplished and skilled, and I was tied to the other boys in a heartbeat. The warriors began to leap onto the riverbank. The mist still lay like a blanket over the bank, and they quickly made their way to our village. Our chief, Rald, was proud of the fact that the village was on a high piece of land well away from the unpredictable water. It was at least 400 man-paces from the water, and I watched as the fierce warriors trotted off. Most had a helmet, and 2 had long coats of mail, but all had a sword or an axe and a round shield. My heart sank. Most of the men in the village were naked in comparison. There were just 2 helmets in the village and only 3 swords. The old toothless one began to lift us one by one into the boat. I was the last one to be hauled unceremoniously on board, and I watched as the others were lifted up. Raldsson, the son of the chief, began to struggle as they lifted him. He was the eldest of the boys and had seen 11 summers. He was almost a man. The old man took out an axe handle and struck him so hard on the back of the head that blood poured from the wound, and he fell unconscious onto the deck. No one else fought. When my turn came, I obeyed meekly. I was no Raldsson. The 6 of us stood on the thwarts of the ship and found that we could see to the village. None of us had the courage to voice a warning, and I fear we would have been silenced like Raldsson had we shouted. We could only watch as the warriors entered the open gates of the settlement unhindered. The guards both lay dead. We had not seen them killed, but I knew the 2 men. They had probably been asleep. We heard the screams and the clamour of metal on metal. Our men were putting up a fight, but I had seen the warriors. The 14 men of the village would not be able to do much against the 30 hardened pirates who carved a path of death through my home. When the noise stopped, we saw the first of the captives being led down towards the boat. The mist was beginning to be burned off, and we were able to watch them as they trudged down the well-worn path to the river. It was the women and the children who were driven down to their ship. There were no men. I saw my mother walking in the middle of the first group. I would not be alone. The warrior who led them wore a helmet that had a face mask. He looked terrifying. You could see nothing, not even his eyes, and it made him seem inhuman. He wore a fine mail shirt and carried a shield with a dragon's head painted upon it. He carried a long sword. There was blood on the blade. His men formed 2 lines on either side of the captives, and at the rear 4 of his men drove the few animals we possessed, a handful of sheep and goats, 2 pigs and a milk cow. The sow was heavy with young. Suddenly we were yanked from behind and we were pulled away from the side. The old man said something. Parts of it sounded familiar, but none of us understood a word. We were pushed and dragged towards the dragon's head prow of the ship, and I